Okay, we're gonna have to get comfortable for this one. If you are thinking about moving, you believe that God has called you to move, and you are taking that step of moving in faith, watch this before you move. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Alondra Lachey. I post content along the lines of faith, family, and food. Today's topic, it's not more so really a topic. I am going to be sharing like my testimony of like moving out of state with my son. I am a single mom. It's been a year now. I did not move with the job. I did not even have a place, like an actual place established before I moved. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm also going to share like some things that I feel like is important before your move. Let's get into it. So I actually shared this in parts on my TikTok. If you all would like to watch it in like a more condensed way, I did do it in probably like 8 parts. But yeah, I will say this will be a lengthy video, so you have the opportunity to like watch half of it, watch it in bits, and then come back to it. But I definitely recommend you watching this in its entirety, because I wish that I had somebody doing what I'm doing before I moved. So like a little backstory before I actually moved. So I'm from a very small town in Florida, like not too many people there. And I think you always have this feeling where if you live in small environments, or just like you have this desire and you know that God is calling you to move, and you know that there's more for you, and you feel like the environment that you are in, it's not conducive to your growth. I feel like God will push you in that direction to let you know like, hey, I'm moving you away. So I'm living with my grandparents since 2021, 2022. And at this point, I'm really growing closer to God in my relationship. And I'm like, okay, God, I know that there's more for me. Like being right here, it is hard right now, but it was a purpose in it. God was definitely pruning me, working on me. I can definitely say like where I am today, like spiritually, would not have happened had I not moved back home. Like the place God had me in, where it was just like really me and him. So that was 2021, 2022 come. I'm praying to God because I know that I'm supposed to move. I just don't know where. So during this time period, I'm looking at so many different places that I can move into. I'm looking at every state that you possibly could think of. And I'm like, okay, God, I know that I'm just supposed to move. I don't care where it is. Just move me. And I want to be where you want me to be. There are plenty of places that I could choose, but I want to be where you want me to be. I was still in a place where I was really learning to discern God's voice. And so I felt God had revealed to me this is where I was supposed to move. I say this point right here, stop. It is very important when you are moving to be cautious about who you speak it to. Also, being in a place where you're open to who God may place in your life to help you with your move, to lead you in the direction that he's calling you, to help you financially, like whatever that looks like. So I had a friend of mine at the time who knew where I was thinking about moving to, or where I believe God was calling me to, and she gave me like a dream that she had, and she didn't understand it. And I was confused because I'm like, why did you tell me about that? Because I've made it clear the area that I feel like I'm supposed to move into. It was crazy because before she told me that dream, I also had a dream prior to, but I really didn't understand. I just heard a city. And I said, okay, whatever. I wrote it off because I had my mind set on like, this is where I'm supposed to move, like this other place. She presented her dream to me and I wrote it off at first, but during this time period, I was also actually fasting. And I said, okay, God, there's something to this because I cannot let it go. You're not allowing me to let it go. I feel like there may be more to this. So let me really seek you in this. And like, are you trying to heighten or highlight something to me through my friend? Again, was fasting and praying during this time period. And I remember because I was in a place of like really trying to discern God's voice, one book that I can say really helped me was Priscilla Shrier's book, How to Discern the Voice of God. I believe this is the title of it. But I just remember in the book, she was talking about like, you know, how God will give us the mercy of confirmation, and how, you know, like first he will confirm it in his word, and then he will also give us the mercy of confirmation in like other areas in however he chooses to do that. And so I was fasting and I'm like, okay, God, I need to know where I'm supposed to move. During this time period, I'm like, my son is getting ready to start school. He's going to kindergarten. And so I'm like, I don't want to put him in school here, but I don't want to like move him around a lot. And so it was a lot that was planning too, where I really needed to know like where God needed me to move. And I just felt like there was this urgency, not in my own, so I won't lie. I was ready to move. However, I do feel like God had put me in a place of like to have like, I won't say an urgency, but I think God was calling me to really seek him about moving, because I think a lot of times things are attached to our moves, especially if it's a God ordained move. And so I just had to like really just seek God. As I'm seeking God, he definitely gave me the mercy of confirmation. He definitely confirmed it for me in so many ways to where like my mind was blown. So during this time period, that was like maybe February or March or something like that. Because around April is when me and my son actually took a trip to the city that we were moving to. Mind you, this place was not on my list. I would have never picked this place for myself, you know? And so I know it was a God ordained thing, because where I live now, I could have never imagined living here. So we came to the city, we toured it, we loved it. Like, we both loved it. And it was crazy because when we first came here, it felt like home. Like, I had never been in a place where my spirit just felt so settled. And I said, oh my goodness, this has to be where, like this, like I feel like God, you're even more confirming it in my spirit. Like, this is truly where we're supposed to be. And then it came to a point where I'm like, okay, God, now how are we going to get here? I'm not working. I don't have the money right now. So how am I going to move? I believe God had been like showing me before that surrender my idea about this move of how I thought it was going to happen, but it still wasn't the way I thought I was going to move. I'm applying to jobs in this city. I'm applying to jobs remotely. I'm doing all of the things, and I still don't have a job to get a place. It's kind of like, you know how you have the prereqs for college? It's like, to get in a place, you need a job. That's my thinking. And so I'm doing all of this applying, I'm doing all of that, and nothing is panning out. And the only thing about it was, okay, God, my son is getting ready to go to kindergarten. I was taking a whole bunch of like steps of faith before my move. I actually enrolled my son into a school in the city we live now before we actually moved. It's funny because you typically can't do that, but I already had an idea of where I thought I would be moving to. And so I used that address. I inquired at his school. His principal called me and she did know. So it wasn't like a backhand thing that I was doing. Like, no, like I did let her know this is a place that I am trying to get. I put the address. We are going to be moving there, but we are still back home in Florida and we're in the process. And she was very understanding and she knew that. And she also said like, but before he does start school, we have to have like the proof of residency. So I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. Because this is the place that I'm about to get. I thought it gets close to August 2023 and my son is getting ready to start school. And at this point, I'm like, okay, God, either I'm just going to put my son in school here, and then whenever a job does come, I'll just move and then I'll just have to take him out of school. But God knew I did not want to do that. Like, I'm so big on like stability for my child and for myself. During this time period, I'm like, God, help me to trust you, help me to trust you, help me to trust you. And they say be careful what you pray for, because you don't know how God is going to give it to you. I'm like, okay, God, I know I need to move. The only way I know how to move is through a job. I haven't really seen it happen for many people without a job. And so it became a place of like, I just felt like I just wasn't going to move. Because if a job is not coming, how else am I going to move? I feel like slowly God was just continually getting it out of me. Like, you need to let that go. That idea that you have to have a job for me to move you. And the thing is, I had people that were supportive, encouraging me that God has more than one way to move you. And they will always tell me like, God is going to provide for you. Like, however he decides to do it, he's going to take care of you, and God can move you without a job. It came to the point like maybe 2 weeks before my son was getting ready to start school. At this point, I'm like, maybe I just made a bad decision by putting him into this school. And so maybe I need to retract some things, because this just don't like it's happening. Because at this point, I'm still hoping and banking on a job to come. And it just was not coming through. And so for me, it made sense that if a job isn't coming, then maybe I'm not supposed to move. I was kind of toiling with it until I had a family member who knew that my son was getting ready to start school. They would let me know that, hey, I will help you. I came to this point where I'm like, okay, God, I'm gonna trust you. I feel like you confirmed it. I think it's time for me to go. I'm gonna just trust you. Things are not lined up the way that I thought, but I believe that you are calling me to move. I feel like God had constantly been confirming it, that it is time now. I didn't expect the family member to offer to help me in that way. I truly wasn't. It was really out of the blue, for real. You know, I was initially going to get a hotel room like for a few weeks, and then because I did have some money, and they were like, you know, what about an Airbnb? Because they know I have a son. He was 5 at the time, and so they're like, you know, he's not going to want to stay in a hotel all day, and so like you can get an Airbnb. And I was like, Airbnbs are expensive, and they was like, you know, I would help you pay half, and I'm like, okay, cool. So at that moment, I had decided I'm going to move. I'm going to trust God. I don't have a job right now. I don't even have an actual home set right now. But I believe that you provided the way, and I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to go. So when it did come time for me to move, it happened so quick. Like the family member offered to help me, and we were leaving like within the next day or two. Like I had already had my stuff packed though. That's the funny thing. Again, a faith step. I had all of my clothes because I was staying with my grandparents. I didn't have much room anyway, but I had all of my stuff packed for like a year because I knew I was going to move. I just didn't know when, and I just didn't know how, but I was putting my faith to it that, okay, God, I'm going to believe you that you say I'm going to move, that you're calling me to move, and I'm just going to take steps of faith. I feel like God had been telling me, when the time comes, I need you to go. I need you to be ready. And I was, because when the opportunity came, when I had the help, I took off. Like not took off, like ran, like, but I was ready. So we leave out on a Friday morning. This is in August of 2023. We have all our stuff together. We're leaving, we're traveling, we're hitting the road because we got hours to go. So as we are getting there, probably like maybe 3 hours down the line, my son gets extremely sick. And I'm like, bruh, either God is telling me to turn back around or the enemy just is opposing me so much. I stop the car, I get him out. He's throwing up, he's vomiting. I clean him up. I think it was the food that he had. Honestly, I still don't know to this day. So I clean him up. I get back in the car. We drive off. Kid you not, like maybe 15 minutes later, he's throwing up again. I'm like, oh my God, this has to be a sign. I'm like, I cannot move. So I stop. I pull over again. We're like in the middle of nowhere. I pull over, I clean him up, I get my anointing oil, I'm praying over him and everything. We get in the car. He doesn't throw up anymore, but I can still tell like he's not feeling well, but he sleeps pretty much the whole time. So I keep going, praying. And I had a friend that was definitely encouraging during this time. I called her, was telling her about it, like she was praying. And you know, like she really was encouraging me to like, just like to keep going. So I kept going. We finally get to where we live now. And my son, that same day, he had a back to school night. That's why we left when we did. Because again, I'm so big on education. I'm so big on being involved in my son's life. I mean, because I'm the only parent that he has that is involved in his life. But the fact that I wanted to meet his teachers, I wanted him to meet his teachers. I mean, he's going to like school for the first time. He hadn't been in school in a while. And so I really wanted him to be comfortable, and I wanted to be comfortable. So I really wanted to go. So that's why we left at the time that we did. After my son's back to school night, we went to a hotel because we were going to get the Airbnb that following Monday. There was another family member that didn't stay in the same city, but stayed close enough to where I didn't have to drive hours and hours and hours back home. But they did stay close by that, you know, it was just like a few hours or something. And so I was able to go, you know, stay with them. We stayed there for the weekend. And so we went to the hotel, we stayed there overnight. And then that Saturday is when we went to the family member's house. And then that Monday is when we came back to the city to get the Airbnb. Like I said in the beginning, I had a family member that was helping me get an Airbnb. I sent them my half of the money, and I did not handle anything with the booking. I sent that to them. But we did agree that the Airbnb wouldn't be booked until Monday. So Monday finally comes, and we're back in the city from staying with the family member, and we're waiting to get the Airbnb. When we got to the city, the Airbnb still wasn't booked. And so I was contacting my family member just like, hey, you know, what's up? Is it booked? What's going on? And, you know, they were ensuring like, you know, everything is being taken care of. I didn't know at the time that my family member wasn't the one that was doing the booking. My son actually had a doctor's appointment, which was fine because that gave us time to still be waiting to get the Airbnb. So we finally go to the doctor's office. We're there waiting. The Airbnb is still not booked. And it's like maybe like 4-ish, 5 o'clock. And I'm like, okay, at this point, what we gonna do? So I'm contacting my family member because at this point I'm like, all right, we homeless because we don't have no place to go right now. Obviously, I'm like, I do have money, so I can get like a hotel room, but I'm like, I already put money to get the Airbnb. So, but I'm like, that's not booked right now, and it's evening time. And so my family member, they're actually getting ready to go out of town. And so they're still trying to handle this while on like traveling. So I end up getting in contact with the person who was handling the booking. They went through this person because I don't know, don't ask me, I don't know, but they somehow like was able to get the Airbnb cheaper. I will leave it at that, I don't know. So I was cool with it. Obviously, when I found out, not of how the booking was, this and that, but just I knew that I would be saving some money, which was good because I'm like, all right, with this move, I'm trying to save all the coins that I can. So I talked to the person. He finally gets the room booked, and he's telling me, so we were going to stay at this Airbnb for 2 weeks. My mindset was, if this is a God ordained move, 2 weeks is enough time. Like, God, I just took the step. I was obedient. I took the step, and now you're going to show out. Now, when I get here, you're gonna bring the job, you're gonna bring the place, and it's gonna because I mean it has to. This is a God ordained move, right? So again, we were gonna book it for 2 weeks, and he initially booked it for 1 week. He told me, which I didn't understand, and to this day I still don't understand. He told me that he would book it for 1 week, and then when it got closer to like that week ending, he would extend it. I didn't ask no questions. I didn't even know what was going on, honestly. I was tired. I'm like, okay, whatever. Whatever you said, okay, cool. End up finally going to the Airbnb. Beautiful Airbnb. It was a nice apartment, pool view, right in the city. It was really nice. We felt like we was living the dream, baby. During this time period, I think maybe a couple days later, my son will be starting school. So he's getting ready to start school, and at this point, I'm like, all right, now he's in school, I can really do more things. I can be applying more and just whatever I can to like, so I can be doing my part. I had a friend who recommended doing like DoorDash and Uber Eats, and I said, okay, cool. So I did do it because I'm like, I'm not doing anything else, and I can do it while my son is at school. So I have been doing that. I have been accumulating. When it came time to the point to actually get the Airbnb for the next week, I messaged a guy, but I had already went on the Airbnb website, and I looked and I saw that the week that I needed it for, like that next week, was already booked. And so at this point I'm like, okay, so no, we homeless for real. So I end up messaging a guy, and I'm just asking him because I'm like, maybe it's a glitch in the system or something. Maybe he's already booked it, is what I thought. So I'm like, hey, I'm staying on the Airbnb website that the Airbnb that I'm staying in is already booked for the week I needed to. He's like, yeah, but you could just get another Airbnb. And then I'm like, I don't want to go to another Airbnb. I'm like, I don't want to keep moving my child around. But y'all, I end up having to go to another Airbnb. So at this point is when I say, you know what? Cut the cameras, cut the tape. I'm finna go home. We end up going to another Airbnb. And the guy who originally handled the booking, I don't know what he was doing, but he basically did not book this second Airbnb, and he basically took the rest of our money. And my family member that originally helped me, they actually end up like paying to help me get another Airbnb. So we're in this other Airbnb, and at this point I'm just over it. Like the thing that happened with the guy who did the booking, and then just because it's not looking the way I thought at this point. And I'm like, I don't like this. And so I'm constantly questioning now, is this a move from God? Like, was I supposed to move here? Did I do the right thing by moving in faith like this? I'm praying, I'm doing all of this, but at the same time, I think I came to a point where I was like, you know, I'm going back home. Like I had started looking for schools back at home. I had looking for jobs, apartments, all of that. I was about to go back home. We booked that second Airbnb for I think maybe 3 days. We were going to book it to like equal a week. And so like we booked it for those 3 days, and then my family member's like, hey, do you want me to go ahead and extend the days? Basically because, you know, we don't want the same thing that happened to the first Airbnb to happen this time. So I was like, yeah, cool. But then we didn't book it that same day because I was busy and I had other stuff going on. So the next day, the family member asked me, was like, hey, do you want to book it? And so I was like, hold on. That was weird because I don't even know why I said that. I do now, but at the time, I just was like, hold on. So I told her, hold on. She's like, okay. I killed you not. The very next day, the person who owns the first Airbnb that we stayed in, she randomly texted me and asked if I would like to go back to her apartment, the first apartment that we were in, and if I wanted to continue to stay there until her lease ended, and that I would pay her directly. She would take it off Airbnb, and I think her lease wasn't in until probably like maybe 7 weeks. And we like, you know, that we would work out an arrangement and I would just pay her. And I was like, my mouth was hung because I was like, I was at a point where I was really ready to go home. I was about to go home because I just felt like maybe I made a mistake, you know, moving here. And so when she randomly texted me that, I was like, okay, that was the first sign that I seen God's favor on this move. So we work out an arrangement. She knows that I'm not really working right now, but I am doing like Uber Eats and DoorDash. So we go back to the other Airbnb. So we're staying there. And at this point, I'm like, okay, God, you've given me more time. So something definitely has to be coming through. You extended the time. You know I needed some stability. You've given that to me. So I'm still seeking God. I'm still trusting God. I'm still applying. And yet nothing is still coming. Mind you, I am doing Uber Eats and DoorDash, but when I first got here, it was really hitting. It was hitting. But after a while, I feel like it just became so oversaturated to where I really wasn't making that much. And that became a conflict because I wasn't able to pay her what we had agreed to. But let me show you like God's grace and favor. Even with her knowing that, the fact that she still was allowing me to stay there, she still was working with me, she was encouraging me. Like whenever she found like any job listings or anything, like she would send them to me. It wasn't like, you owe me this money, you better get out. Like she was like, the grace that she was showing me, like her patience with me was just, it was so beautiful. And I just know that that was God showing up through her. So it came to a place where I paid her for like a few weeks, and then I couldn't even pay her no more. And she still was like, just like gracious, you know, and that was like more of just me seeing God's favor on this move, that she was somebody that I don't think she even knows. She was somebody that played an integral part of me continually staying here, because if it wasn't for her, I would have left. And so that's why I say, like, all the time, you want to go where God calls you to, because he will have provision and he will have people in place that he has already ordained to help you. Those weeks come up and I still don't have a job. So no job equals no place. I've heard people say all the time that they've gotten places without jobs, but I also know that what God does for one person, he ain't gonna do for the next, or he might not do for the next, you know? And so I end up at a place where I'm like, okay, now what are we gonna do? Where we're going to go? Because at this point we are homeless. I feel like there were so many different moments where it's just like we were really homeless. And so at this point, because I did have a family member that was close by, I had to get out of that apartment because she did not renew her lease. She wasn't doing it as an Airbnb anymore, so I couldn't even continue to stay there. I went to go stay back to the family member that stayed close by. So in doing that, during that time period, I'm like, okay, I really gotta just think to get my head together. I just have to go somewhere that is comfortable, like, you know, that's not crazy for me and my son, where I can just think. And so during this time period, I'm like, God, it's me again, Lord.
God, if you listen, help! I can't take it no more.
Did I make the wrong choice? Am I supposed to be here? Before I actually moved, I had been connected with someone, and you know, we just exchanged conversations. She's a very sweet woman of God. She's very nice. I love her today. I ended up being introduced to her, but we didn't really talk much. And so when I actually did move, we talked here and there, but it really wasn't much. And so when I had to leave from the Airbnb and then go to the family member's house, she came to me. Like, I feel like the Holy Spirit dropped her in my spirit. And so I'm like, I'm gonna reach out to her. But I was scared because I'm like, I know we don't really know each other like that. We're not friends right now. You don't know me, I don't know you. So it's like, why would you be open to letting me and my son come and stay in your home for a few weeks? And so I just, you know, sucked up my pride and I said, okay, God, it came a place of, do you feel like God really called you to move here, or are you just gonna go? And so I really felt like God had been calling me to move there. And I think there were other things that had happened, especially with how the lady just randomly offered her Airbnb to me. It was moments like that that was like, okay, I feel like God called me to this place. So I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, would you be open to letting me and my son stay in your home for a few weeks? You know, would that be okay? After us talking, she did agree to let me and my son stay with her for a few weeks. And mind you now, she just moved into a brand new home, like a beautiful brand new home. And I'm like, for you to open up your new home to us and you don't even know us, I'm like, that's another move of God. But the problem was, although she did agree, she did have some other obligations. So we couldn't move right then. She told us we can come, and I believe it was like 12 days of when we could come. But the thing is, we still need a place to stay. The family member doesn't stay that close. So it's not like I could have been traveling back and forth from there until, you know, it was time for us to stay with her. That would have been way too much. It was too much the times that we did go. So we end up having to get another Airbnb. We get the Airbnb, we stay there for 12 days. Mind you, when we first get to this Airbnb, granted, it is very nice, but when we get there, it's like stuff is all everywhere. It's like the person who was cleaning it hadn't finished cleaning. And so I'm like, okay, this is absolutely crazy and I'm already tired. So I reach out to the woman who owns the Airbnb. She's just distraught because she's like, you know, this is just not how she carries out her business. And so because of that, she did give me like a free night. So we're staying there. We were scheduled to stay there for 12 days. During this time period, I'm still doing Uber Eats and DoorDash until I get into a car accident. So I actually end up getting an interview to work with the schools for a TA position. So the interview goes really well. I pretty much knew I was going to get the job. You know, she talked it up like, you know, she was very confident that they were going to give me the job. So I leave that interview. I go do some more DoorDash because like a few hours before I have to go get my son from school and still just trying to, you know, get some extra money. I'm driving around. Somebody dashes through another lane. We collide as I'm going through one lane. And I'm like, are you serious? And it's just at that point, I feel like the enemy was really at me. Because at that point, I'm like, okay, it's stuff after stuff after stuff. And so at this point, I'm like, God, there's so much that's making me think I just made the wrong decision in coming here. It was just so much over and over and over. But there were other, like, I feel like areas where it's like God was showing me this is where I've called you. And so I'm like, okay, I get into this car accident. That was it for the DoorDash and Uber Eats. The next day is when I get a call that they want to recommend me for the position. And it came right on time because the DoorDash and Uber Eats is how I was making my money. And then that job came through and it was like right on time. So I took the job. The 12 days that we're staying in this Airbnb has come to an end. And now we can actually go and stay with the girl who I had, you know, been in connection with. Again, during this time period, we don't know each other like that. We wasn't friends at the time or anything. I just knew her through somebody else. But over time, we became friends. Like, I love her to this day, okay? But that's just really just how God does things. I came here with no friends. I came here really not knowing nobody, and just how God orchestrated and ordained that. And she even, you know, like I said, we came to an arrangement of what I would pay her. But once she realized that, you know, I was trying to get my own place and stuff, she just like, girl, just keep that. And, you know, I would rather you just like, if that'll help you, like, you know, I'd rather that for you to get your place. And I'm like, girl, that's a blessing. You know, that you're allowing us to stay here and not pay you is crazy. I'm like, well, okay then. At this point, I'm still working my TA job. We're still living with a friend who has become my friend. I want to emphasize on that because she became a friend. God orchestrated and ordained this relationship that I have nothing to do with. I didn't know her, she didn't know me, and then now I have a friend. At this point, I'm looking for places. I'm looking for us to get a home. This is November 2023. So, mind you, from August to November, I still do not have a home. I now have a job, but I still didn't have a home. It took me from August, September, October, November to get the job. And so now we're in November. I'm still trying to look for a place because I'm like, okay, granted, I have a job now. It shouldn't be too hard for me to get a place. But y'all know, you work in the education system, you know that they do not pay teachers enough. So you know they're not paying the teaching assistants enough. So I wasn't even making enough at all. And so I'm like, okay, God, it's gonna have to be your favor that gets me this place because I ain't even making much. And then it's gonna have to be your favor for me to keep being able to afford it. So I'm looking at places. There was one place that was not too far from my son's school because I did want a place that was in a great location, but that was close to my son's school. So I'm looking for a place. It was like income restricted, so it was cheaper, but it was like a brand new place. And so I just thought, I'm definitely going to get this place. I applied, I get rejected. I was upset because I really felt like I would have gotten that place. And at that point, I'm like, okay, if I have a job now and I still can't get a place, then I don't know. That definitely took a hit to my faith. And all of it was taking a hit to my faith. But then that moment when I definitely thought I was going to get that place because I'm like, God, you know we need our own home. And I didn't. That just made me feel, okay, well, I'm not going to get approved nowhere but God. And I'm going to this other place, and I had already said in my head, if I don't get this place, I'm leaving. Because it almost was like a last resort. Not that it was it's where I live now is a brand new place. My apartment is brand new. I mean, beautiful apartment. It was just the fact that I'm like, if this doesn't work out, I have to go. So I looked online to see if they had any available units. It said that they did not. Some time went on, and I just felt the Holy Spirit was pushing me to go. So because it is close to my son's school, I picked him up one day and we came to the apartment. And I'm like, hey, do y'all have a 2-bedroom apartment? I was going to even sort of for a 1-bedroom, but I've always been praying to God that I've always had a 1-bedroom. But I've always been praying to God that you would bless me and my son with a 2-bedroom apartment, for mommy to have her own room or her space again, and for him to finally have his own room. I end up going there, and he said that they did have 2 bedrooms. He's like, yeah, we got plenty of them. And I'm confused. So I'm like, on the website, it says y'all don't have them. And had I just like stood by that, I probably would have missed out. So I'm telling him just like, hey, how big are y'all on credit? Because mine ain't the best. And he's like, oh, we could definitely get you approved. And so I'm hopeful. I'm like, okay, cool. So I do the application. There's no application fee. And I said, because I really want to make sure I get approved, I'm going to add my mom as like a co-signer. So I add my mom. I think it was on a Friday. I wouldn't hear anything back until like that next week. I called that Monday. I found out that I was rejected. At that point, it was like jump ship for me. I was about to head out because I said, if I did not get approved for this place, I had to go. So the community manager at the time was like, well, I could talk to my property manager and I can give it over to her and she'll more than likely override it. So I'm getting hopeful again. So I'm like, okay, just trying to go through the motions. Like, you know, let me know whenever you hear something back. So that was on a Monday. That Tuesday, I didn't hear anything back. So Wednesday, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, were you able to get the approval from your property manager? And she was like, yeah, actually she approved it yesterday. So I went through that Monday, the property manager approved it that Tuesday, and I heard back from her that Wednesday. So I'm like, okay, cool, we're in there. Go through all of that, but there were still some more stuff that had to go through. Like it had to go through like compliance and stuff. And the community manager knows how particular the compliance department can be. They wanted to like make sure that I had like 2 years of verifiable like rental history. And I lived with my grandparents for 2 years. That's the verifiable like history. But the compliance company don't like that. They want to have like actual landlords. So she was kind of scared that that might be something that they rejected. And just some other things. And I kid you not, the community manager was working her stuff like her life depended on it. Like she was helping me get approved. Like she know the ins and out. So like she was compiling my application in a way to help me get approved. I don't know this woman. This is just like, I feel like God was using her. God was using her to help me get approved. So even with all of that, I'm getting impatient at this point because it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of they might reject this, they might reject that. And I'm just, at this point, I'm just getting tired. I'm like, I'm exhausted because from August, September, October, November, and now we're branching into December of 2023. And I still don't have a home, to where I'm like, I'm just tired and exhausted. I don't know what to do. It's going through its course. Hadn't heard anything back until a Thursday, where I finally got the email that I was approved for my apartment and that I was able to go pick up my keys. I wanted to move in that weekend. I had already made it clear, not clear, but I'm like, God, I really desire to be in my apartment during the weekend. I want to get the keys because I want to have my son's room set up before he comes home. We were already going to be spending Christmas in Florida, but I wanted to have all of it because he was back at home in Florida. And I wanted to have all of his stuff together, so when we came back from Florida, back like to where we live now, he could walk into a brand new home and get like have his room already decorated. And the only way that would happen is if I was able to get my keys that weekend. They're actually not open on the weekends. And she actually, when she messaged me, she told me that I could come and pick up my keys that weekend, like having my security deposit and all of that. I can come and pick up my keys that weekend. I can move in on the weekend. Mind you now, since that weekend that I moved in, they have never been open on the weekend, like ever, other than that time for me to move in. So she told me, you know, it would be a free month's rent, only a certain amount security deposit, which wasn't high at all, and that my rent will be prorated. So January, I would not have to pay the full amount, and I didn't have to pay my full month's rent until February, and I moved in December. It was just God all over that. And so I was just like, I'm jumping for joy. I'm excited. I get my keys. I get some stuff in here. I remember saying, I'm like, God, I really need more. I need extra. You know, like I do have some because I'm working right now. But I want to be able to get more stuff in my apartment. Like, you know, when you move, like you got necessities and all of that. And so I'm like, okay, I want to get these necessities. I want to have all of this together, but I don't really have the money right now. So I'm like, God, I really need some extra. You remember when I said I got into a car accident, right? So that same day, which is on a Saturday, is when I moved in of December 2023. I end up going to get a money order for my security deposit. As I'm going into the store, I get this notification on my phone. I stood on the fact that the accident was not my fault. I get a notification on my phone that says that my insurance company has determined that I was not at fault. And so the deductible that I had already paid was going to be returned back to me. I had just prayed this prayer, God, that I needed some extra because I need to get some more necessities. I'm like, God, I just need some more. And that same day, later that day, as I'm going to get my security deposit, I get that text that the money that I paid for my deductible was coming back to me. They sent it through a check, but when I got that notification, I called them. They stopped the check and direct deposit into my account within like an hour. So I had even more money to get the stuff that I needed. I'm like, God, you really showing out. So I go ahead, I get my stuff. I get to decorate everything and all of that. And I finally get to bring my son into his new home. And I'm going to place that video in here so y'all can see it.
Why are we going here?
Why are we going here?
Yeah,
I don't know.
because it's our new home.
Is this our new home?
It looks like it.
Somebody been here.
Yeah.
Who been here?
Nobody?
Huh?
See what this?
Who house this look like?
Nobody.
Who house?
Nobody.
Who does look like? Come.
Nobody.
Do you know what house this is?
No. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Look at the wall. What does it say? No, over here in the middle. What does it say?
Can't get in the room. You don't go in it.
This is your room, Kason. This is our new home.
I love this. I love it. I love it.
This is your room, buddy.
I can't believe.
You can't believe it? This boy. Oh my God.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
It was like such a beautiful moment for myself and just for him, because just like everything that we went through. And then just, we had talked about us having our own home for like 2 years. And then we finally, like, it finally became a reality. Like, we have our home now, a beautiful home. I had always said, God, I want a brand new home and I want a free month's rent. And God made both of those things happen. And just his excitement to have his room was such a great moment for me just as a mommy. Because doing it on your own can be very hard. But it's like God wasn't done showing out, because I had already said, like, God, I want to get a TV for my living room, because I am in there all the time. I just didn't want to pay for it, because I mean, I'm still like, I got this place on a TA salary. So I'm like, okay, God, I don't know how I'm able to keep this up. So I gotta be conscious, you know, and I gotta be wise about my spending. Me and my son were in Walmart and we're looking at TVs. We want to find the right size. We want nothing that's too crazy, but we do want a decent size. So we're looking at a 55-inch, and I said, I think that 50-inch is perfect. And so I'm asking my son, he was like, yeah, I think a 50-inch is perfect. So I said, okay, we'll come back tomorrow. I didn't want to spend money on a TV, but I know I wanted to get a TV. So I kid you not, the next day is when I get a text from someone who lives in the city that I live in, and they knew I had moved here. And they were saying that, you know, they had just got another TV, and that they had a 50-inch TV that was like basically brand new that they wanted to give to me for free. They weren't asking me to buy it. They said they wanted to offer it to me first before anybody else. And y'all, I was like, God, you really showing out, because now I'm in the store just talking about getting a 50-inch, and then you don't put it on somebody else's heart to bless us with the 50-inch for free. So yeah, that's what my initial move looked like, with me moving out of state with my son, not having a job, not already having a place, not having family or friends. This was a complete faith step. Was it easy? Absolutely not. Like, there were plenty of moments, as you can see, that I wanted to jump ship and just go back home, because it felt easier to just be back at home in comfort chaos. It was harder to, you know, to keep trusting God in the middle of uncertainty. And while I can say, because this move was not what I expected, I did not move the way that I thought I would, I can say I have seen God's hand more and more. If there's anything I can say that this move has taught me, it is to trust God for my day-to-day provisions. The Israelites were wanting like to gather manna for like more than one day, when they were just only supposed to gather for that day. I'm learning more and more, like, you really have to trust God for the provisions for the day. I've had to trust God day by day. Like, it's been a step-by-step thing, and that's what this move has taught me. When it's a God-ordained move, you have to know that when things look the way that they do, it's for a purpose. Whether it's God calling you to trust him more, whether it's God is trying to build your character, whether it's God trying to prune you, like whatever it is, when you are in this place of suffering, or when you're in this place of hardships, or when you're just in a place of uncertainty and things are just uncomfortable, you have to just keep seeking God and trusting God. It is not easy. If there's anybody that can tell you it's not easy, it's me. Like, it was very hard for me to move from place to place to place. I moved a total of 8 times before I got my own apartment. So if there's anybody that can tell you that it's hard, baby, I'm one of them, okay? It was not easy for me. It was hard moving to all of these places over and over and over, and not knowing if it was going to work out, questioning God, questioning if this was like a move that I was supposed to make, questioning my faith. It came to a point where I'm just like, okay, I don't know. And so it was very uncomfortable, because I was in such a place of uncertainty and not knowing how it's going to work out. I have this little boy with me that I'm taking care of my own. We don't know anybody. I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know how that is going to happen. But I had to come to a place where I'm like, I'm gonna either go back home, or I'm going to trust God and see what it's going to be like. and that's just what it was. I actually am going to post a part 2. It's kind of like an update of what happened, you know, like what it looked like after I got my home, and just still this transition, because we believe that once we get whatever it is that we pray for, that things just magically get better. That's not the case. And so I do want to share an update what my move looks like right now in September 2024, and just how that's looking. So I do want to say a few things before I close this out, because I feel like it's gotten long already. But if you have made it this far, kudos. I will say this: if you are believing that God is calling you to move, first make sure that it is God that is telling you to move, because we can get ahead of God and we just don't want to do that. So make sure it is God really telling you to move. Another thing I would say is be intentional about really seeking God during this time. You want to make sure that you have the instruction that you need, and you want to also just be in a place of surrender to where whenever God does bring the provision, you can accept it in whatever way. And you will be surrendered to the point where however God wants to move you, you will do that. Even if it comes with a level of uncertainty and you don't know how it's going to look, because you only can see like what's in front of you. Another thing I would say is be careful of who you tell about your move, because while I had a very supportive family and a great support system, not everyone has that. And so you have people that will be like godly counsel to you. So they may give you advice and it's like really coming from like it's godly counsel. Or you can have people who they will inflict their fear on you, and they're like, I don't think you should do that. And you have to test like the reason why they're saying it. Is it because they are giving you godly counsel, or is it because they know that that's something they would never be able to do, and so they're inflicting their fear on you, and so you're like, okay, yeah, no, maybe this is not for me. So be very intentional of that. Another thing that I would say, if it looks like it's hard, if it doesn't look perfect, if it looks like there's suffering, hardship, don't count it out that it's not God, because we have been trained to believe that if it's all good, that it's God. If it's no strife or no struggle, or if there's hardships attached to it, it's not God. Not even biblical. It's in the Bible that we will have a lot of troubles. And we think that by moving, those troubles just stop. Like if you had troubles before, wherever you was living before, those troubles can follow you. And so don't think that just by moving, everything is just better, you know? Like moving does have great advantages. But don't count it out that because things might not go the way you expect, that it's not God. And I think you can miss God if you keep that mindset. I think we see a lot of people share their testimonies, and granted, they are beautiful. However, I don't think many people will tell you everything that they went through on their move and what it looked like for real. Like really telling the hard things, the times that they felt uncertain, like all of this. They won't tell you that. And I think it's really necessary, and that's why I'm doing that. And so if it looks hard, don't think it's not God. Like even if you take this step of faith and it's moving, it's like, okay, I don't know how this is gonna pan out. Don't count it out that it's not God, because I have learned to trust God more and more. Can I say trusting God is easy? No, it is not. But I have learned to trust God more and more. I didn't even want to share this at this point, because I'm like, God, I feel like I'm still in the thick of it and I need more of you to do. However, God has been showing me like, you can share what I have done for you, because I can look back and the way God has provided for me, like up until this point, and thinking about that, it's like the testimony is just not for you all. The testimony is also for me, because it's allowing me to remember. It's allowing me to be a witness to what I've seen God do in my own life. And so God has definitely provided. He's definitely taken care of me. And I will use that to keep going. Because I realize when you do share your testimony, it does bring a level of gratitude, because you start to think about what God has already done. And then from that place of gratitude, it's like, I feel like your gratitude opens up the door for more of what God will do. You can't be ungrateful. Like you can't be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be grateful, or I'm not going to share because things aren't perfect right now. So yeah, I hope that helps. Again, I am going to post an update, like a part 2. If you are interested in that or any of the other content that I'll post, like I said, I post things from along the lines of faith, family, and food. If y'all like to eat, y'all love recipes, if you're a parent, any of that, make sure that you like and you subscribe to my channel. Until next time, love you guys.